If we take this average size piece of pine trim and you make 100 repetitive cuts on this DeWalt miter saw, the factory dust bag is going to collect 70 grams of sawdust. If we have a look at the surrounding air quality in this garage, it can only be described as terrible. It's really bad. If we look at the American Air Quality Index and we have a look at those tiny dust particles that are going to be bad for your lungs, the PM 2.5, if we check out this air quality meter that I have set up at breathing height, after the 100 cuts, we are at levels of 302 micrograms per liter of air. That is not going to be a smart strategy for cutting in your garage. Not only that, you're going to have a fine layer of dust on everything that you own. You go ahead and you connect a cheap 5 horsepower rigid vacuum to the back of the saw. You make that same 100 cuts, you're going to be collecting 126 grams of sawdust, 80% more than the dust bag, and the air quality after that 100 cuts is going to be 10 times better. You're going to be topping out at 31 micrograms per liter of air. And now the cheapest, easiest way to get better from here is to improve this dust boot at the back. Now there's all kinds of fancy ideas and things you can buy online and some really clever concepts. For me, I just took off this old dust boot, took a $4 roll of black duct tape, extended the sides and the bottom by about 2 inches, reattached the boot, trimmed it to fit so it's not going to get caught on anything. You make that same 100 cuts with the extended boot, you're going to collect 146 grams of sawdust, and the air quality is going to be 29% better. You're going to top out with a PM 2.5 of 24. So it's been a month since I recorded the first part of the video. I tore my Achilles playing basketball with my son. So bear with me, I'm going to be sitting on a stool for the rest of the video. This is the most important one of all the things. I'm going to cover a couple ways that you can absolutely derail your miter saw dust collection system, and it can really be bad for your health, so pay attention. The first thing here is just the connection at the back of the saw. I don't know why, but almost every vacuum hose in the entire world is not going to fit on the back of your saw. You're going to have to doctor things. Where you can go wrong is by finding one of these small connections. These smaller hoses, this is a Festool hose. These connect up to sanders and all kinds of things, and they actually fit beautifully into the back here, which is great. But what ends up happening here, if you make that connection and you cut off the airflow by reducing the size, as opposed to figuring out a combination of things using tape to make a nice snug connection over the outside, you're going to drastically cut down the wind speed that you're going to generate here at the saw, and the air quality is going to suffer dramatically. Now, if we look at the 100 cut test with the small hose and the internal connection, after that 100 cuts, we're going to get to the unhealthy level where the small particulate reaches 61. If we use the same vacuum, but we use the bigger hose that slips over the top of the back flange, that's going to be into the moderate territory of 24 micrograms per liter of air. It's going to be almost 2.5 times better than the small connection. And the second thing here is just a really simple. When you buy a shop vac, it's going to come with a cheap white filter. If you hook that shop vac up with just the white filter and you hook it up to your saw, that small particulate goes in the vacuum and just shoots right out the back, because this is not going to filter it out. You got to get, this is a little dusty, you got to get yourself a better filter. The blue filters are going to do an excellent job for any kind of sawdust and that PM 2.5 particle. You can go up to the green HEPA filters, which are going to do an even better job. Or the other thing that you can do is just use that white filter, but combine it with a vacuum bag, and you're going to get just as good a filtration, if not better, because the vacuum bag's going to kind of extend the suck power of your vacuum as it fills up completely with sawdust. If you're getting vacuum bags or you need a new filter, definitely check out Amazon. I'll put all the links in the description. You can get the vacuum bags for about $2 to $3 depending on your quantities. If you buy the same bags at the Home Depot, you're going to pay $10 plus. This is the final thing. It's the most exciting thing. If you like power tools, you're going to love this. I wanted to figure out what would happen if you went out and you bought the most powerful, but still cheap vacuum out there on the market. I'm not gonna spend thousands of dollars, but what I did, I needed another vacuum. I went out and I got this rigid vacuum, which is the most powerful vacuum that they make. It's a 6.5 horsepower. It's gonna collect 153 grams of sawdust. After the 100 cuts, the air quality, the PM 2.5 is topping out at 9. And that is right in the green healthy zone. You're not gonna need to wear a dust mask with that. I also checked it just to make sure with a chunk of medite around the same size. Did the 100 cuts, and with the notoriously dusty medite, it too topped out at 9. Extra horsepower in this vacuum is pretty well worth it, and I would highly recommend it with your miter saw. If you're wondering about one of these dust deputies, which is an amazing Cyclone separator, I wouldn't recommend it with the miter saw. I use this with my table saw just because it generates so much more dust than the miter saw. But what ends up happening with this, if you put it into the system, you're gonna lose a lot of wind speed at that dust collection point. With this big unit here hooked up to the saw, you're gonna get a wind speed of 1437 feet per second. You put this in the system and you lose quite a bit. You're down to 1050. What that really means in terms of dust collection is you're back down to kind of just below what this 5 horsepower vacuum can do. So you're not going to get that air quality benefit. So for your miter saw, I would recommend increasing the dust boot the best that you can. Make sure your connection is over top the back, and then get the most powerful vacuum that you can afford in your budget. I would use it with a vacuum bag. It's going to make the cleanup a lot easier. And if you've got a miter saw and you want a couple other handy tips, go ahead and check out this video right over here. I'm trying to sound smarter than I actually am. I'm out of breath. I've been sitting on the couch for about a month now. I think that was probably about as good as this old crippled man's gonna do.